Hey, welcome to our Nexus YouTube channel, where it is our aim to ignite a passion in the next generation for God, for people, and for life. If you want to get involved in what God is doing in the lives of the students in the Pacific Northwest, you can email Pastor Brandon at brandanh@fscmilton.org. We love you, and we hope you enjoy.
Awesome. So we've been in this series in Philippians, and it's just been super cool to see what God's been doing when we're finding beauty in negative space, because I'm going to move this back a little bit because I might be walking around a little today. When we're finding beauty in negative space, because so often the world is, it's kind of negative. Like we were talking about earlier, we walk through some valleys sometimes. And when I say sometimes, I mean most of the time we're going to be in a valley of some sort. Sometimes they're deeper, sometimes they're less deep, but generally there's always going to be something going on. It might, and all of us, we don't deal with the same things, but we all deal with some things. Come on, somebody. We all have something that we deal with in life. Yeah. So when we're finding beauty in the negative space, we're learning how to find joy in the midst of pain. We're learning how to find peace in the midst of pain. And it's been really cool to see what God's been doing. And today we're going to be in Philippians chapter 2, verse 19. And it's going to seem a little confusing at first how this is going to actually tie into something that you can get from it, but I'm hoping really a lot that God's going to speak something to you today. So verse 19, Paul has been talking to the church in Philippi, and he says, I hope in the Lord Jesus to send Timothy to you soon, that I also may be cheered when I receive news about you. I have no one else like him who will show genuine concern for your welfare. For everyone looks out for their own interests, not those of Jesus Christ. But you know that Timothy has proved himself, because as a son with his father, he has served with me in the work of the gospel. So we have to remember that Paul is in prison. And what he's saying here is I would love to go visit you guys in Philippi. I would love to visit your church, to see you guys, to help do what I can to grow you. But I can't because I'm in prison. So I'm hoping to send Timothy here. He's pretty much Paul's son from another mother. He's not really a brother, but more of a son, but he had adopted him a little bit. So he's hoping to send Timothy to Philippi. But you know that Timothy has proved himself, because the son with the father served with me in the work of the gospel. I hope therefore to send him as soon as I see how things go with me, and I am confident in the Lord that I myself will come soon, which is cool. But I think it's necessary to send back to you Epaphroditus. That's a hard word to say. I tried really hard. My brother, co-worker, and fellow soldier, who is also your messenger, who you sent to take care of my needs. For he longs for all of you and is distressed because you heard he was ill. Indeed he was ill, almost died, but God had mercy on him. And not on him only, but also me, to spare me sorrow upon sorrow. So he's saying he had mercy on him to live, but he had mercy on me because he did die, and I couldn't have handled that. Therefore, I'm all the more eager to send him, so that when you see him again, you may be glad, and I may have less anxiety. So then welcome him in the Lord with great joy, and honor people like him, because he almost died for the work of Christ. He risked his life to make up for the help you yourselves could not give me. The title for tonight, and I'm going to tie it all in together, I promise, and we're going to get into it, and it's going to be really cool. It's called Support Systems. Support Systems. And I just want to plant the question in you right now before we pray and jump right in. What is your support system? Who do you have for your support system? We'll pray and we'll get into this. God, we just thank you for an opportunity to come together as a family, as friends, to just have fun tonight, to worship tonight, to hear your word, God. And I pray that it's not finished. Even after the word's done, you aren't finished moving, God. And as we're going home and as we're going into small groups, God, you are still moving, God. So whatever seeds are planted, whether that was on the volleyball court, on the basketball court, in a worship set, or even in this message right now, God, I pray that you water those seeds. Help us to water those seeds so that they flourish into good fruit that we can give out to people as we're at schools and in our communities this week, God. And I just thank you for that in Jesus' name. Everybody said, Amen. Amen. Awesome. So one thing that was really important for Paul, the Apostle Paul that wrote most of the New Testament, he's writing this book in Philippi, was having a role model. He really believed that every person needed someone to look to. He actually wrote in 1 Corinthians 11:1, follow me as I follow Christ. It's something that was super important to me. He said it over and over in most of the letters that he wrote, is that if you don't have someone to follow, then really you're choosing your own path, which sometimes can be dangerous, because when you let your own mind make your own decisions, yes, that's good, but sometimes your mind can lead you astray if you don't have someone else to come and say, that wasn't right, let's knock you back onto course and course correct you. So he really, really believed that having someone to look up to that's visible was actually really super important. So growing up for me, I had some people that they poured into me, my youth pastor, Pastor Casey, or Pastor Nick, who just moved down to Oregon, or even Pastor Greg. They poured into me. But for me growing up, I was afraid of that kind of relationship. I was afraid to get close enough to someone to let them in, right? I hated letting people get close, and it's hard for me, and it's really still hard for me, because there are times, there's some times that I feel like Indy is the only person I got. And I know, hindsight, that's not true. But I know some of us can feel like, yeah, maybe I'm surrounded by people, but I feel alone. Yeah. I'm surrounded by all these people that have the smiles on their face, but I feel alone. And I know that there are people around me, but sometimes it feels like I'm alone. And at least for me, when I feel alone, oftentimes it's because I want to be left alone, right? Yeah. When you feel alone, generally you seclude yourself. I know this weekend that there was some hard stuff that happened this weekend, and there was some people here that actually they tried to invite me out to dinner with them. I was like, man, I just need to be alone today. And I got to wallow in myself when I actually got to share it with someone. I was freed from whatever that was holding over. I'm not going to tell you exactly what that is, because that's not the point. But I'm just saying that when we share it, freedom actually comes through together. Yeah. When we're together, freedom comes. And oftentimes when I want to be left alone, it's that fear of intimacy, right? How close can I let you in? How close should I let you in? Can I trust you with me? Can I trust you with all my dirt, all my secrets, all my hardships? Can I trust you with me? And I think a lot of people fear intimacy because we don't want others to see into me. We don't want others to see what's going on the inside, and we fear getting closer to someone because, not just the superficial relationships that we all know. Hey, how you doing? Welcome. Can I help you find your seat? Oh, that's gonna be a high five, and that's all it is. We all know those kinds of relationships, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the relationships where you dive deep and you get into some real topics. Yeah. Sometimes those are scary because what if they can see the speck in my eye? Mm-hmm. You guys know the portion of scripture in Matthew chapter 7. Where it says, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? And that it's focused on you passing judgment to others, but it's the same concept when others are looking at you and you have a speck and you're very aware of that speck in your eye. Mm-hmm. When there's something in my eyes, I'm aware. Mm-hmm. And I want it out generally, especially if it's like an eyelash or something. I just want it out. How close do you need to be to someone to see the speck in their eye? You gotta be pretty close, and I did that to Ethan because we're close. It was weird. Jared.
I'm so sorry.
We're close. We're very close. It's but you have to be close to someone to see the speck in their eye, and you have to be able to. Don't judge me. It's been a long day. I lost volleyball so much. To Ethan, so he's on my mind. Revenge. All right. But we all have the specks in our eyes. We all have specks, and letting someone in close lets them in to maybe see those specks. The Bible says that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And when we get close to someone, they can see the specks. So we put on this defense to try to get them not to be able to see it. We put on a mask that lets other people see this is who I want to be. And we put on this mask and this facade. It's like, well, if I can let you meet my representative and not meet my reality, maybe you'll continue to love me. Okay. Yeah. I'm saying it's going to get real. And I don't know, if you brought steel-toe boots or something, but I'm going to talk about some stuff tonight.
Wait, what?
I'm going to talk about some stuff tonight. Some real stuff.
I brought the steel toe and the Carhartt. Come on, I'm ready. Oh.
So and then we put on the mask, and if you all believe that I am who I say that I am, when in reality I am hurting, or I am in reality I need help. Yeah. And that's real. Some of you might have noticed I'm wearing a backpack.
Yeah.
Yeah, why?
It's it's all right. I'm carrying some stuff, right? You don't know what's in it. You don't know how heavy this stuff is. It looks fine. It's hurting my back a little bit on the, but it's like poking into me. I think there's like a can of rocks or something in there that's poking into my back some. But
Yeah,
I'm gonna ask.
right.
I'm gonna go right in the front right here.
No, me. Oh.
Can you help me out with that?
We'll help you out with that.
It's heavier than it looks.
Yeah.
It's a little heavier.
All right.
And all I'm saying is the backpack gets to hide whatever stuff they're carrying. So oftentimes, so we'll open the backpack up, like maybe someone's like, I can start to help them out. Let's take them one thing, it's a candle. You know,
Wait, what?
Yeah, there's a lot of just heavy stuff in there. Candles, there's a book.
Right.
Lots of more candles. Open it more.
Can I borrow one?
Start with the book.
Not
It's-
allowed.
It's getting lighter as we go, right?
What is that?
But
Oh.
if she, carrying the backpack, go ahead and take it off. We're good. It's getting lighter. Carrying the backpack, we don't know what she's carrying unless we get close in to help. And if she doesn't ask for the help,
Yeah.
we'll never know what she's carrying.
Right.
That's good.
So we wear the masks, we wear the backpacks. We're holding all of this weight of family, this weight of friends, this pressure, this weight of trying to get good grades so we can play good in sports and doing all this weight. And there's so much that's weighing us down. And we're walking like we're fine. And other people think we're fine. And we put a smile on, and there's so many people that they put that smile on, in reality they're hurting.
Mm-hmm.
They're hurting. The enemy wants you to stay alone. He wants you to stay alone because together is the way to freedom. Together is the way to freedom. There's a story, well, it's an account of David in 1 Samuel. If we can go to that. I didn't write down the exact. 1 Samuel 22, 1 through 5. It says, David left Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam. So before we get into that, David, some of us have heard it, David was called to be king. Samuel the prophet came to the house of Jesse, who had a bunch of sons, and Jesse brought out all his sons except for David, and Samuel's like, well, God didn't choose any of these ones, do you have another son? And he's like, well, yeah, but he's little and short, and it's that whole story of God doesn't look at what's on the outside, he looks at what's on the inside, and David was a man after God's own heart. So God called David. David was called, and he tried to be king, and then he goes and kills Goliath, and everyone's like, man, David's super cool. And then Saul, who's the current king, actually starts to get jealous and starts to try to kill David. So David was supposed to replace Saul in his kingdom, and Saul tries to kill David, and David has to run, and he goes to Gath. Gath is important because if you remember Goliath, the one that David slayed, that's where Goliath was from. Gath is where Goliath was from. So David had to run from his purpose into enemy territory, which is scary because it's enemy territory. So when we pick up and it says David left Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam. When his brothers and his father's household heard about it, he went down to him there. All those who were in distress or in debt or discontented gathered around him. Aren't those the kind of people you want around you? And he became their commander. About 400 men were with him. The prophet Gad said to David, do not stay in the stronghold, go into the land of Judah. So David left and went to the forest of Herath. So David couldn't stay in the place that God promised him.
Yeah.
But he couldn't stay in his enemy's territories. He couldn't stay in Jerusalem where God had him. He also couldn't stay in Gath because that's where Goliath was from, and they didn't like him there because he killed Goliath. Have you ever felt like you just kind of don't fit in anywhere? Have you ever felt like you were too churchy for the world,
Yes.
and then too worldly for the church?
Yes.
Like you go to school and you're like, man, they're doing this, and I know I'm not called to that, so you're kind of awkward around it. You're like, well, I don't know if I should be around this, but they're your friends, so you're feeling weird. And then you go to church and you're like, well, they don't know what I did this week,
Yeah.
so I need to kind of close off from that. Did you ever feel like you just kind of don't fit in anywhere? This is where David was. He couldn't stay in the place that God promised him. which is the church. God promises us in the church. He promises us to be the church, not just in the building the church. He promises us to be the church, but we're also called into the world. And sometimes when we're in both, we can feel like we belong to neither. So David feels like he doesn't have a home and ends up in a cave called Adullam. Adullam means hiding place. He ends up in a hiding place. This cave becomes his escape. And when we're intentional, if you remember last week, we talked about being a light in the world. We talked about going into the mud where people are living and pulling them out of the mud. And it can be really easy to start pulling people out of the mud and get all that mud on you and start to identify with that mud. And you start to feel like, man, I'm not of the world, but I'm still in the world pulling people out. So when I go to the church, I'm covered in mud and I feel like I'm all muddy and I don't belong here either. So he goes to this cave that's a hiding place. It's covered in stuff, all sorts of stuff. It's a cave that's safe from people at church, and it's safe from people at school, and from family, and just life, and it's safe from this life, which can feel overwhelming. And he escapes from his problems. And I think we all have an escape, right?
Yeah.
And my escape is music. Whether it's listening sometimes on the way home from work, I will just do a couple more laps around the block with the music turned all the way up with everything. I just, what?
Come on.
Just going, pounding on the steel. Like, I love it. Or just like playing on the piano or the guitar. I can get lost in it, and I love that. Some of you, it might be books. That's not me.
No.
Power to you if you're reading, that's great. Some of you, it's movies. That's more my thing. I like to watch movies, Netflix all day. But like that, it's an escape sometimes. You get lost in the world that another person has created. Some of us, it's sports.
Yeah.
We get lost in football, volleyball, soccer, basketball. Got a couple people that are fast pitch. I'm not a baseball person. I'm sorry. It's hard. But some people, right? All power to you.
Fortnite.
Some people get lost in video games. Maybe it's Fortnite, Skyrim. I don't know if anyone still plays Skyrim. But
Skyrim, bro, that's
Spider-Man. I don't know.
Spider-Man?
No one plays Spider-Man.
Bro.
Apex. Like, some people get lost in video games, and that's fine. Everybody has an escape. Everybody has an escape. But if we aren't careful, your escape can lead you into greater captivity.
That's good.
Your escape could be that cave that now, instead of blocking all of the other stuff out, you've locked yourself in. You've locked yourself in to your escape. It's so important where you go when you run. Because sometimes what you run to will end up running you. David escaped to a cave because it's a safe place. He escaped to something that he's now trapped in. I believe this is one of the reasons that pornography runs so rampant in America. It's an escape. And people keep going to it because it's an escape, and that's all they know. It's being stuck in what was originally protecting them from their enemies, and now they're trapped in it. It's an escape that ensnares its victim. We're thinking pessimism. Who here is a pessimist or a realist? Let's use the right word. You know, someone is like, man, I got hurt once. I didn't like how that felt. I got hurt by a person once, and I didn't like how that felt. So now, every person I meet, I hold them to a lower expectation. Who's here's a pessimist? Just a little bit. I know.
I got my moments, bro. I'm gonna be real.
I mean, there isn't a problem with being realistic, but this stronghold that we put up that says, I'm not going to trust you. That way, when you let me down, I won't be surprised. And it's okay to be realistic, and it helps us set our vision to a realistic standard that we can actually reach. But if we're starting to make those pathways in our head that just says negativity after negativity after negativity after negative thought, then all of a sudden we're just not a pessimist. We're not realistic. We're negative. And people don't want to be around us because all we see is the bad. We're not finding the beauty in negative space. We're finding the bad in the negative space. And we're saying, this is negative, this is bad, everything's bad. And we can really easily turn into the negativity. Some people were using movies as our stronghold, and it helps us to escape and recapture your thoughts, but too much of a movie or too much of TV can actually distance you from reality. Some of us turn to listening to music, and really easily, and these are just the simple ones, there's so many more, but really easily music, you got your headphones in and all of a sudden there's people around you that want to help, and you're closed off. You're stuck in your stronghold with yourself. Sometimes yourself is the biggest enemy you have to fight.
That's good.
So David, yes, he's safe, but he's stuck. He's got a better relationship with Tupac than the 400 people that are in the cave with him because he's got his headphones in. I'm the only one Tupac was killed.
Yes.
bro.
So here's the thing, he's safe, and he's stuck, and he's surprised. He's surprised. If we look in Psalm 142, it says it's a maskil of David when he was in the cave. And he says, I cry aloud to the Lord. So this is a song that David wrote while he was in this cave. And it's 2 places in the Bible, it's really cool. It says that I cry out to the Lord, I lift up my voice to the Lord for mercy. I pour out before him my complaint. Before him I tell my trouble. My spirit grows faint within me. It is you who watch over my way in the path where I walk. People have hidden a snare for me. They've hidden a trap for me. Look and see. There's no one at my right hand. No one is concerned for me. I have no refuge. No one cares. So he's surprised. He isn't surprised by the enemies that surround him. He was expecting a battle. He was expecting enemies. He wasn't surprised by the battle or the enemies that surrounded him. He was surprised by the friends that didn't surround him. He wasn't expecting there to be no battles. He wasn't expecting it to be easy, breezy, beautiful cover girl. All right? He was expecting enemies. He just wasn't expecting the lack of friends.
Yeah.
He was expecting for some people around him to have his back. In the New Living Translation, it actually says, I looked for someone to come help me, but no one gave me a passing thought. No one will help me. No one cares a bit what happened to me. So he's complaining to God, and he's complaining about being alone, that nobody came. But here's the thing. He wasn't alone. You guys remember in 1 Samuel 22? Let's go back real quick. 1 Samuel 22. I went too far. David left Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam. When his brothers and his father's household heard about it, they went down to him there. He wasn't alone. All those who were in distress or in debt or discontented gathered around him. Those aren't necessarily the people you want, but there are people there. And he became the commander. There was 400 people there. It was like no one came, but there was people there. And it helped me realize, I gotta find my notes again, helped me realize that there's a difference between being surrounded and feeling supported.
That's good.
There's a difference. Man, we can surround ourselves with people, but if we don't feel supported, it's lonely.
Yeah.
We can surround ourselves with all these people, and if we're not supported, man.
Come on.
My question to you, what is your support system? There's a lot of people in this room right now. I mean, you can all tell us, we're Nexus Youth, # we are Nexus Youth, and we're all together, we're all family, but how many of the people in this room do you trust enough to let them in, maybe to see the speck? How many people in this room can you go to in your time of need? It isn't that he doesn't know anybody, it's that nobody really knows him. It's that nobody really knows him. He didn't say nobody came, he said nobody cared. I have this crowd around me, and I smile so good that all of them have no idea that I feel like this is all fake. None of them have any idea that I don't know if I'll be able to make it till tomorrow, but I'm smiling. Hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. And you just walk off, smile on your face, knowing that you've got weights weighing you down, and you need someone's help to take something out of your backpack. No one really cares enough to know, or knows enough to care. And especially thinking about people in ministry. How many people here volunteer at all? volunteer at the church. There's so many. As someone in ministry, as some pastors, leaders, it can be really easy to think, do they really care about me? Yeah. Not just the task that I do, but about me as a person. Do they only care because I have something to say? Do they only care because I play the guitar or I play the drums? Do they only care because I'm leading a small group? If I wasn't up here, would they care? If I didn't have something to say, if all of a sudden I lost them, would they care? And it's so easy to think about that and to be lost in that. And it can be the same for the people who aren't in this room. There's people in your schools that are walking around with a smile. That are walking around like everything's good, and they're hurting. There's people in your schools that are walking around, they're the most popular person in class, and they've got the girlfriend or the boyfriend, and they're depressed like you couldn't imagine. They came to church once or twice, and then something comes up, and they didn't go for a while, and then no one from the church checked in. And they felt like they were surrounded while they were here, but then all of a sudden I wasn't here on a Wednesday, and I don't feel supported anymore. I don't feel like I've got my support system anymore because no one was there. And it's something that's important is to realize as people that if we need help, we need to ask. Because sometimes the mask that we wear is effective.
Yeah.
Sometimes the facade that we put up in front of us so that everyone can see the smile, it's effective. And no one could even tell how much you're hurting.
Yeah.
So it's important to be proactive about getting help. About getting help. Whether that's just prayer. Saying, hey, I'm struggling, can you pray for me? That's simple. And all of a sudden, you're on their mind. And they're praying with you. And they're thinking about you. And they're wanting to support you. It's like something I'm going to call Bax, if you want to go ahead and come on up. Something I really appreciate about Baxter. I'll be sitting at home on a Thursday, Friday, Monday, whatever, not a Wednesday, and I'll get a text from him. It's nothing like that he goes into detail, but he says, hey, I need prayer, can you pray for me? And I'll stop and I'll pray right there. And I just want to let him even talk a little bit about the breakthrough that he's seen in his life. Go ahead.
So, something that I've personally gone through is fighting through depression and self-anxiety, and how Brandon compared that's my Goliath. And recently, I just beat that Goliath. I just conquered that I'm doing a lot better. That's because I went and I asked for help. And for the longest time, if you know me personally, you know I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
I'm very stubborn, and I hate to ask for help. And I've even told Brandon, because I feel like I'm a burden. You feel like you're a burden, and you don't want to ask for help. Does anybody else feel like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. And so, one thing I have to tell you is get over that. You're not a burden. People care about you. You just need to look in the mirror and tell yourself to shut up, and then go to that text, because the loudest person that talks you down, the worst person that talks you down and is the loudest person is yourself.
Right.
My dad, he always tells me, you're the only person that can control yourself. You can't control anybody else but yourself. You can't blame somebody else for you not wanting to go get help. That's your fault. You're the one yelling at yourself. And I feel like not only going to other people for help, but going to God for help too. Because if I never went to God for help, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be standing here right now.
So cool.
And I think a lot of you in here, some of you in here need to know, just something that's been put on my heart is that you just need to continue fighting. Because you can't, if you give up and let you can go and you can ask for prayer, ask for help, but you need to work on it yourself too. You need to say, okay, I got my prayer, I got my support, and now I need to realize, okay, now this is what's going on, this is what I need to do wrong, this is what I'm doing wrong, this is what I need to fix. And another thing is that I think how you explained it is that after you fight one Goliath, there's going to be more Goliaths coming, because didn't you say that after David killed Goliath's brothers came after him?
Yeah.
So once you beat the main Goliath in your life, be prepared for more, because you're never gonna not have another Goliath. There's always going to be continued battles, continued fights, but you need to continue to ask for help. Continue to go for people for support and help, because you can't do it on your own. And I thought that for the longest time. I was the one wearing the backpack. People never knew. Have you guys ever seen that meme? The funny kid when he's at school and it shows like SpongeBob laughing, and then the funny kid when he gets at home and he's crying. That was me for the longest time. Because you put on this face and you feel like if you make people laugh and you're funny, you have that attention, you feel like that's where you need to be and that you're happy now. But then you get home and you don't have that anymore. There's nobody there to make laugh. You're on your own, and that's why. And I feel like even though that's a meme and it's meant to be funny, it's so true. And so yeah, that's how I was for the longest time. But I always have now. I got over my stubbornness. I told myself to just stop being stubborn, because that wasn't getting me anywhere. So after I beat that Goliath, now I'm currently battling another Goliath, which is anger. I have anger issues, and that's something that I'm currently battling. I feel like now that I have my depression and anxiety, I reside in my anger. I use that as a shell, and it comes out a lot in really bad ways. Like, a lot of you are gonna laugh, but when I play video games, I will. When I get mad at my video games or I get mad at something at the game, I pick up my Spolvature and I throw it across my room. And I've broken my closet door. I've broken my bed by doing that. I've broken my chairs by doing that. And I've almost broken my own foot by doing that. So I've been going to Brandon for help on that anger a lot. And because that can't continue, it's ruined my relationship with my mother. It's ruined my relationship with my dad. It's ruined my relationship with my brothers, and even my friends. We've gotten in arguments because I don't know how to control my anger. And so, but the true friends are the ones that are going to stick by you no matter what. My friend, he stuck by me for 9 whole years, even through all of my struggles. And I feel like if you have somebody that you can rely on like that, you're good. And even if you don't, you always got God. Even if you don't have that friend, you still have God, and you still have people that care about you, like Brandon in India. And I feel like a lot of you need to hear that through the pain that you're going through, don't be mad at God for the pain that you're going through. Somebody once told me that you thank God for the good times, of course, but you also thank God for the bad times. Because the bad times are learning experiences. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't go through my bad times. There's a song that I love. It's called Shaped by Fire. And they talk about how you're shaped by the pain. The pain shapes you into the person that you are. And you're when people who make swords and make medieval weapons, you can't form that metal, make it into what you want to without fire. So think of that as spiritually. You can't grow spiritually if you don't go through the pain first. You can't help other people if you haven't been through the pain first.
Right.
I lost my brother, one of my younger brothers, when I was 5 years old, and that affected me a lot, especially at such a young age. And I think that's where my anxiety, my stress levels, and my self-confidence just dropped. And even though I was too young to understand it, I think self-consciously my brain tried to defend itself with that stuff. And that was going on for years. School wasn't the greatest, and I always let people walk all over me because I thought that was being humble, because I wanted to be a humble person. Let me tell you, letting people walk all over you is not being humble. That's something that I wish I would have heard a long time ago. And now, after I've beaten that Goliath, I'm standing up for myself a lot more. I have more respect for myself. And where was I going with this? And I didn't get over that until I went for help. I never went to help for anybody throughout my 18 years of being alive. I never went through help because I figured I can do this on my own. I'm a tough kid. I'm not as strong as I thought I was. I need other people to back me up. So think of it this way: if you're gonna go face an army, you're not gonna be able to defeat that army alone. But once you pray to God and you have people to back you up and help you out, your friends, your family, you have an endless army behind you. Prayer is your flaming sword. That's something that's been on my mind a lot, is angels with flaming swords and fire that God has put on my heart. And I always thought fire was a demonic thing, but when I talked to Brandon about it, he actually told me that fire is a very holy thing. And you're not going to, when you go to God and you pray and you go to people and you have people praying for you, that is your flaming sword. And you can use that flaming sword to defeat the demons in your life, to defeat the evil in your life. And it's going to get hard and it's going to get tough, but you just need to continue fighting. When you cut yourself, when you do drugs, when you do other things, you're losing the battle, and you're continuously losing more and more of yourself. And I feel like when it comes to fighting against the things that are hurting you, and it comes to fighting demons, that's when you need to be stubborn.
Yeah.
You don't be stubborn when it comes to getting help. Openly accept help, because that's the only thing that's going to help you. That's the only thing that helped me. If I'm being completely honest, if I never went to Brandon for help, I probably wouldn't be alive today. And that's something that a lot of you need to hear, because you can't do it alone. And I always thought I could do it alone, but you can't. You really need to go to help, and that's like the 5th time I repeated myself. But
It's good.
I forgot what I was going to say. But you continue to fight. You need to have the will of fire. I'm gonna get nerdy here, but in Naruto they talk about the will of fire. Okay, yeah, you can laugh at me. It's fine. No, they talk about the will of fire, where it's the will to continue going no matter how tough it gets, to fight for people that you love, to fight for yourself, and to make sure that what you hold dear is stay strong. And I feel like not only do you fight for yourself, but you need to fight for others as well.
Yeah, it's good.
And helping other people can fill that gap. I know coming here and doing setup and tear down, helping behind the scenes, doing AVL and the kids, that's actually really helped me spiritually. Because before I wasn't very strong spiritually. There was a year in my life when I didn't refer to God as God. I referred to him as the floating man upstairs in the sky. And then I started volunteering and I started helping out. I started praying more. And then I started referring to him as Father. Referring to him as somebody that I can count on.
Yeah.
And you just need to, in life, you need to continue to fight. I thought I gave up for that year, and it only got worse. My depression became worse. My anger became worse. My self-confidence dropped below 0. And then once I asked for help from Brandon, once I asked for help from my friend, and once I started praying, my confidence went up, and my spiritual strength became stronger. And that just started the fire inside of me to go and continue to help and to continue to fight and to continue to help other people to fight, because that's the only way that you can make it through your Goliaths and defeat your Goliaths.
That's good,
Yeah.
guys.
So good.
So it's super important, right? Super important to reach out. Get over, like you were saying, to get over your own stubbornness. That's part of the weight that's in there is yourself and what you're saying to yourself. And saying, I'm a burden. That's one of the weights that you need to get out, because you're not a burden. You are a child of God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are not a burden.
Yeah.
God's stopping you right now. You are not a burden. You are a son or a daughter of the living God. You are redeemed. You are righteous in His ways.
Good.
So there's people in here that are thinking right now, I feel like everyone just wants to get away from me, or nobody really likes me. And it's like, get that out of your mind.
Yeah.
Get that out of your mind. And say to every person in here, even the people that I just met today, we love you.
Yeah, come on.
Even if it's just coming from me, I don't know if I can talk for everyone in here, but just coming from me, coming from India, we love you.
Yeah.
And we want to see you here, and we want to see you succeed, and we want to do whatever we can to help you succeed
Right.
in whatever way is possible.
Right. Yep.
God's stopping that. It's okay.
It's good. Yeah.
And this is what Paul's talking about. Remember, we started in Philippians. It's okay. And he's talking about Timothy. And he's saying, Timothy's going to come to you. And I might send Epaphroditus with him. And we're going to be 2 people that are coming to you. He knows the importance of people, of trustworthy people. He knows that together is the way to freedom, and he knows that it's our mission to reach and save the lost, and that mission's tiring. He knows that it's exhausting in this world, and it's easy to get exhausted. It's easy to get weighed down. He knows that this world is hard, that life is hard, that life can be messy. It can take the breath right out of you. I know I lost one of my best friends when I was in 8th grade. It literally took my breath away. Didn't know what was going to happen. It can take the breath right out of you. It's hard. So we need people that can make us find rest. People that are willing to speak the truth, even when the truth hurts, and say, you are running yourself way too hard. You are doing way too much right now and you need to rest. But we also need people that are willing to say, hey, you've been in this cave for way too long. You've had enough rest. It's time for you to get back into the purpose that God has called you to. It's time for you to get away from this stronghold that's holding you in and start doing what God has called you to do. Maybe that's serving. Maybe that's loving people in your schools. Maybe that's being on a sports team and showing sports that Jesus is in the middle of that too. It doesn't matter what the world says. Jesus is in the middle of it. Maybe that's what God has a purpose for everyone. And some of us are still in this stronghold. We need someone that's willing to pull us out. It says that the prophet Gad told David, it's time to leave and go to Judah. It's time to leave and go to Judah. Judah means praise. It's time to leave and go praise God. It's time to leave and go be in God's plan for us. So if you feel alone and you feel like nobody cares, you need to plug yourself in. Get yourself surrounded by people that care, by people that will support you. And take off the mask for long enough to let people in. Don't just surround yourself with a group of people, but take off the mask to say, hey, I'm having a hard time. This is rough for me. You need to find your Timothy and get people that'll help you get to the next place. And it's interesting because some of you are thinking, wow, I'm going to talk to Brandon or I'm going to talk to India. And here's the reality. I can't be there for everyone at once. This is what Paul was doing. Paul's in prison, but he's not doing this alone. Me and India are not the only people in this room that can be your support system. We are wanting to and we're willing to. And if you come talk to us, we want to talk to you. But Jared's here too. Candace is here too. Ethan's here too. Nick's here too. Students are here too. Alina, Jaden, like there's people in this room. There's people in this room. More than just me. This is not a ministry built on my shoulders. We are Nexus Youth. We are Nexus Youth.
Yeah. That's good.
So we just need to, and I'm going to pray after I say this, but we need to find that person. Even if it's just one. Even if it's just one. Someone is willing to speak the truth in love. Even when the truth hurts. Say, let's get you back on the right track.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
God, we just thank you so much for your amazing word, your gospel that says that we are redeemed, that we are created in your image, and that we are sons and daughters of the living God. I pray for every person in this room that might be feeling exhausted, might be feeling tired, might be feeling like they're stuck in their stronghold. God, I pray for a freedom, for a peace that surpasses understanding in their lives. I pray for wisdom about who they need to talk to get close to, someone trustworthy, someone like the prophet Gad that's willing to say the hard things, that's willing to support them when they're not. Pray over every person in this room that you give them that wisdom, God, that tonight, that they won't leave here and they won't leave this building until they have a person, at least in their mind, that they're going to reach out to for support. Because we cannot do this life alone, and we know that. You created us, and the only thing you said in all of creation that wasn't good was that man was alone. So we need to do this life together. Every head bowed, every eyes closed. Maybe you're in this room and you're feeling that weight, the weight of the world. It says in John 16:33, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, for I, Jesus, has overcome the world. And you're in this this room and you're like, I'm feeling that way, and like Baxter was saying, like we can have people, but if we don't have God, if we don't have Jesus Christ to take that weight, for his yoke is easy, his burden is light, and he will give us victory. And all we need to do is accept him as Lord of our life, give it up to him and say, God, this backpack's heavy, take it. Take it all. And if you're in this room and you want to make that decision for the first time, to make Jesus the Lord, I want to give you that opportunity right now. I'm going to count to 3, and on the count of 3, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. I'm going to count to 3 so that you know you're not alone when you raise your hand. There's going to be other people in this room raising their hand with you. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand because that outward declaration of what the decision on the inside will make it real in your life. So if you want to do that, accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. You are done doing this life alone, and you want to make Jesus the Lord. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. If we can all repeat this prayer after me in honor of those who raise their hands, say, Dear Jesus, I accept you into my heart, and I accept you into my life. Thank you for dying on the cross for me, so that I no longer have judgment for my sins. Take the weight, take the burden. I can't do it alone anymore. We love you. We thank you. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Come on, can we celebrate?